The illusion of narcissistic light. Take a slow, mindful breath with me. Now imagine this. You're walking on a quiet night, and above you the moon glows, radiant, captivating, still. But what most people forget is this. The moon has no light of its own. It only reflects the sun. And when the sun disappears, the moon fades into darkness. There are people like that too. They shine in crowds. They speak with elegance, charm, and conviction. They're the ones who always seem to know what to say, how to comfort, how to impress. People gather around them, admire them, trust them. They seem full of wisdom, warmth, and generosity. But if you look deeper, beneath the surface, you might start to sense something else. A hollowness, a hunger, a quiet desperation. This is the nature of the narcissist. Their glow is not their own. It comes from the attention they receive, the admiration they seek, the control they maintain. And the moment that light begins to dim, the moment someone stops feeding them praise, they feel as if they're disappearing. The narcissist doesn't thrive on truth. They thrive on illusion. It's not that they want to be loved, it's that they need to be admired. Not because they are strong, but because, deep inside, they are terrified of being unseen, unimportant, forgotten. And so they wear a mask, one of kindness, intelligence, strength. But it's not real, it's carefully constructed, a performance rehearsed over years. Underneath, there is no center, only fear. They cannot face their flaws because flaws threaten the illusion. They cannot accept accountability because blame breaks the mask. They cannot tolerate criticism because it sounds like abandonment to their fragile ego. You may have met someone like this, a boss who compliments you but uses praise to manipulate. A partner who makes grand gestures but shames you when no one is watching. A friend who's generous when there's an audience, but absent when you truly need them. And maybe, like many of us, you've asked yourself, is it me? Did I do something wrong? You haven't. You just stepped into their orbit, and for a while, you became the light they needed to reflect. So here's the real question. How do we see clearly through the illusion? In Buddhist philosophy, illusion is not just what deceives us. It's what we choose to believe because it's comforting. And narcissists offer us beautiful illusions of love, of certainty, of strength. But only by waking up can we reclaim our clarity. And the way to wake up? It doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't require arguments, accusations, or conflict. It requires just one question. One calm, clear question that cuts through the performance and holds up a mirror, not with anger, but with truth. We'll explore that question in the next part of this journey. But for now, pause and reflect. Have you ever mistaken reflection for light? Have you ever believed someone's love was real, only to feel drained and unseen? Don't blame yourself for being drawn to light. Just learn to tell what shines from within and what merely reflects. In Zen, there's a teaching. The illusion needs applause. The truth remains when the stage is empty. You don't need to silence the narcissist. You just need to stop listening to the performance. When you're ready, we'll continue together toward the clarity that sets you free. Part 1. The nature of the narcissist, the hungry ego. Let's take a quiet breath together and look a little deeper. A narcissist doesn't simply crave attention, they need it like air. But not because they are full of confidence, quite the opposite. You see, a narcissist is like a man building a house out of illusions. On the surface, it looks perfect. Grand windows, polished walls, elegant design. But every night they patch up cracks, because reality is always pressing in. And if they stop, even for a moment, the whole illusion begins to crumble. They fear being seen as they really are, flawed, vulnerable, ordinary. So they work constantly to prove they are exceptional, smarter, more attractive, more accomplished. Not to grow, but to survive. They live in a state of hunger, but not the kind that can be satisfied. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. The more they receive praise, the more empty they feel. Have you ever known someone like that? Someone who needs constant validation, but no compliment ever seems to be enough? Someone who seems magnetic in public, but cold or dismissive in private? Someone who always finds a way to turn every story back to themselves? That's not strength. That's suffering disguised as control. A narcissist cannot afford to be honest about who they are, because honesty would shatter the image they've created. They can't admit they're wrong. They can't take responsibility. And they cannot feel real empathy, because to feel for others, they would have to acknowledge their own vulnerability. And that's something they've spent their entire life avoiding. They wear masks, many of them. The mask of kindness. Look how generous I am. The mask of wisdom. I've been through so much. Listen to me. The mask of selflessness. I'm only doing this for others. But when challenged, when the truth brushes up against the surface, the mask cracks. And what's underneath is not what they want the world to see. In Buddhism, we say, the self is not a solid thing. It's a habit, a clinging. And a narcissist clings harder than most. They hold tight to an identity that says, I must be admired, I must be superior. Because if they are not those things, what's left? But here's where we often get caught. We try to heal them, fix them, prove to them that they don't need to pretend. And we suffer in that attempt. Because narcissists don't change from persuasion. They don't grow from love that asks nothing in return. They grow, if at all, when the illusion no longer works, and sometimes not even then. So let me ask you something personal. Have you ever tried to love someone into becoming more honest? Have you ever stayed in a relationship because you thought, if I love them enough, they'll finally see me? Have you ever apologized for something you didn't do just to keep the peace? If so, you've met the hungry ego. And the more you give, the more it takes, because it cannot be satisfied. So what do? We see. We stop expecting sincerity from someone who only knows how to perform. We stop pouring our compassion into a vessel with no bottom. And we gently, mindfully begin to detach. That doesn't mean we become cruel. It means we stop lying to ourselves. In Zen, there's a teaching. When you stop watering the illusion, it fades. And that's the beginning of real freedom, not from them, but from our own hopes that they will become someone they cannot yet be. The narcissist is not your enemy, but they are not your healer either. Your peace is not found in fixing them. It's found in freeing yourself from the story that says, I must keep proving my worth. And once you see the illusion clearly, it begins to dissolve on its own. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll explore how a single, simple question, asked with awareness, not anger, can quietly shake this illusion at its roots. But for now, ask yourself gently, where am I still building homes in someone else's illusion? And what might it feel like to come home to myself? Part 2. The powerful question, a mirror to the soul. Let's begin again with a pause. A moment to breathe, to settle, to return. Because sometimes clarity doesn't arrive through confrontation, but through stillness. And sometimes the most powerful revelation begins not with an argument, but with a question. A single question. A question so simple, so quiet, and yet so penetrating, it slices through illusion like a sharp blade through fog. What do you gain from this? That's it. Just 7 words. No blame, no judgment, no accusation. But when spoken with awareness, this question becomes a mirror that does not reflect the mask, but the soul beneath it. For most of us, this question might lead to thoughtful reflection. We might say, I gain understanding, I gain peace, I gain connection. Honest answers from a place of self-awareness. But for a narcissist, this question is terrifying. Why? Because it forces them to confront something they've spent a lifetime avoiding, their true motive. You see, a narcissist doesn't do things simply to give, to support, or to connect. There's always a hidden transaction. They praise, but they want praise in return. They give, but they expect admiration. They help, but only when it will be noticed. They operate like a performance artist on stage, always calculating, always measuring the applause. But when you ask, what do you gain from this? You're not clapping, you're lifting the curtain. And that changes everything. It's not a question asked in anger. It's not a weapon. It's a light. A light that reveals what was once hidden behind charm, cleverness, and control. Let's imagine a moment together. You're having a conversation with someone who often dominates the space, always has an answer, always reminds you of what they've done, how much they've given, how deeply they've suffered. They interrupt you with yet another story of sacrifice or a moral lecture disguised as advice. And in a moment of clarity, not hostility, you gently ask, what do you gain from this? What happens next? There's usually a pause. Then the mask begins to flicker. They might stammer. They might laugh awkwardly. They might even say, nothing, I'm just trying to help. But watch closely. You'll often see it in their eyes, the flicker of discomfort, the unease of being seen. Because deep down, they know the answer. And it's not selfless, it's not pure. It's control, validation, power, recognition. But here's the important part. This question is not meant to shame. It's not meant to trap anyone or expose them to the world. It's meant to reveal, for you, and maybe even for them, what's real. And this matters because most people who fall into the orbit of a narcissist begin to doubt themselves. They wonder, am I the one being selfish? Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I should just be more grateful. But when you ask this one question and see the response, it all begins to make sense. The narcissist doesn't thrive on truth. They thrive on control. And once that control slips, their power fades. In Buddhist practice, we don't confront illusion with violence. We simply see it. And once we see it, it loses its grip. This is what the question does. It helps you see clearly. It lifts the fog. It breaks the spell. So, ask yourself now, quietly, who in my life has always needed to be admired? Whose kindness feels conditional? Who cannot answer this question without flinching? And then, the most important question of all. What do I gain from holding on to them? Sometimes awareness is the beginning of freedom, not because you expose them, but because you finally stop lying to yourself. In the next part, we'll enter a story, a parable, that shows how this question plays out in real life. You'll witness what happens when illusion meets truth, and the mask begins to fall. But for now, carry this with you. Not all battles are fought with swords. Some are won with silence, some are won with presence, and some are with a single honest question. What do you gain from this? Part 3. The Cracking Mask, a story of exposure. Let me take you now to a quiet corner of a bustling marketplace, somewhere not marked on any map, but deeply familiar to the soul. It's the kind of place where people gather not just to trade goods, but stories, where laughter, footsteps, and conversation weave into the rhythm of the day. And sitting at the edge of this market, beneath the shade of a tree that stood longer than memory, there sat an old, quiet man. He watched, not with judgment, but with stillness. And as the morning passed, he observed a man walking through the market who carried himself with great importance. His robes were immaculate. His voice rang out like a bell, loud, confident, well-practiced. Everywhere he went, eyes followed. You see, this man was known. He spoke of generosity, of wisdom, of giving. But there was a catch. He only gave when people were watching. He only spoke truth when it made him look wise. He only offered help when it could be admired. His kindness was never quiet. It came with a spotlight. And then one day, a traveler arrived. Worn from his journey, but clear in his intention, the traveler approached the old man beneath the tree. "I've heard you see things clearly," he said. "I've come seeking truth, but everywhere I go, I hear different answers. Some speak loudly, some speak softly. How do I know what is real?" The old man smiled. "Truth," he said gently, "does not need to be announced, nor does it seek reward. But illusion, no matter how beautifully dressed, always wants something in return." Just then, the important man, overhearing the conversation, stepped in. "I can help you," he said to the traveler. "I have served many, given much. I've advised those in need. If you truly seek wisdom, you should learn from me." His words were smooth, his tone convincing, but something in the traveler stirred, a subtle dissonance between what was said and what was felt. So he turned once more to the old man. "How do I know if his words are true?" The wise man simply replied, "Ask him this: what do you gain from this?" The traveler, curious and calm, looked the important man in the eyes and asked, "What do you gain from this?" A hush fell over the market. Even the breeze seemed to pause. For the briefest moment, the important man's face changed, just slightly. A flicker of something behind the confident eyes, a twitch of discomfort. Then, quickly, the smile returned. "I gain nothing," he said. "I speak out of love. I help from pure compassion. I give because it is my nature." But the old man said nothing. And the traveler, now looking more closely, noticed the cracks beneath the surface. He saw the effort behind the performance, the tremble in the voice, the urgency in the denial. Because deep down, everyone watching felt it. Something had shifted. When truth is spoken, it doesn't need to be defended. But when illusion is challenged, it scrambles to survive. The important man, sensing the attention had changed, quickly took his leave, walking away with the same confident stride, but something behind him now felt hollow. The traveler bowed in gratitude to the old man, and as he walked on, he carried not just wisdom, but clarity. The crowd that had once admired the important man began to see with new eyes, not with anger, but with understanding. They saw how performance had taken the place of presence, how the loudest voice wasn't always the most sincere. And that was the beginning of the illusion crumbling. You see, the power of that question, "What do you gain from this?" is not just in the asking. It's in what it reveals without needing to explain. It's in the silence that follows, the stillness where truth emerges, not as noise, but as knowing. In Zen, they say, when the wind stops shaking the tree, the leaves settle on their own. You don't have to force people to see what is false. You simply ask and observe. Truth doesn't panic. It breathes. But illusion, when seen, begins to unravel. And in that quiet unraveling, something beautiful begins. You stop being deceived. You stop second-guessing your intuition. You begin to trust the silence more than the show. That is the gift of awareness. That is the moment the mask begins to crack. Part 4. Why the question works. A light that reveals the shadow. There's a reason the question feels so small, yet carries such weight. What do you gain from this? At first glance, it's almost too simple, barely a ripple in the conversation. But don't be fooled. This question doesn't shout. It doesn't confront with aggression. It doesn't accuse or argue. It illuminates. And in the presence of light, shadows can no longer pretend to be anything else. You see, the person dominated by narcissism survives through one crucial mechanism, controlling how others perceive them. Their image is their fortress. They dress it in generosity, in intelligence, in virtue. They shapeshift into whatever earns admiration. But it's not because they love being helpful or wise. It's because they fear what they are without those masks. To be seen as ordinary terrifies them. To not be adored feels like death. This is why a question that gently pushes past their performance is so devastating. What do you gain from this? That question doesn't challenge their story. It challenges their motivation. It asks them not what they do, but why. And that's where the illusion crumbles. Because deep down, they always want something. Recognition, praise, control, influence, superiority. Now, imagine them trying to answer. If they say, "I gain nothing," they're lying, because their entire sense of identity is built on gain. If they say, "I want to be admired," then the veil drops and their true need is exposed. And if they avoid the question, deflect, change the subject, or accuse you of something else, well, that silence speaks louder than any answer could. No matter what they say or do, the mask slips. It's like holding a mirror up to someone who has never looked inward. Not really, not honestly. That's why this question doesn't just expose them, it frightens them. It forces them to see the gap between who they pretend to be and who they really are. But here's what's beautiful about this process. The question isn't a weapon. It's a mirror. It's not an attack. It's an invitation. If the person is sincere, even if wounded or insecure, they'll feel that invitation. They might pause, reflect, maybe even open up. But for the narcissist, whose entire identity depends on avoidance of that reflection, the mirror is unbearable. Because the truth is, this one question shines a light into the one place they've never dared to look, their own motives. It's the equivalent of turning on a flashlight in a room that's been kept dark for years. You don't have to accuse them of anything. You don't have to argue. You just have to ask. And wait. Because it's not the confrontation that exposes them. It's the clarity. In Buddhism, there's a teaching. The moon does not fight the night. It simply shines, and the darkness fades. This question is like that. You don't fight their delusions. You don't try to tear down their castle of pride. You just shine a little awareness. And what cannot stand in truth will dissolve on its own. Now, let's pause for a moment. How often have you found yourself tangled in someone's performance? Maybe they seemed too generous, too wise, too perfect to be real. Maybe deep down, something felt off. You couldn't explain it, but you felt it. This question is your compass. It's not just for exposing others. It's also a way to check in with yourself. Ask it quietly. Ask it internally. Not just of them, but of yourself too. What do I gain from staying silent? From trying to fix them? From hoping they'll change? And what would it mean if I stopped trying to manage their illusion and started honoring my own clarity? You see, the real gift of this question isn't in changing someone else. It's in awakening you. It's the realization that you don't need to force the truth to be seen. You only need to stop pretending it isn't there. So let the question live in you. Let it be your quiet tool, your internal bell, the gentle breeze that clears the fog. And when the moment is right, ask it. With no malice, no agenda,
No need to win, just light. Because once light touches shadow, the game changes forever.
Part 5. The Strength of Silence and Awareness. Take a breath with me, deep and quiet. Let it settle in your chest like a gentle stone in still water. Because what we're about to talk about is not a weapon. It's not a strategy. It's something far more powerful. Awareness. When it comes to dealing with narcissists, those who manipulate perception, wear masks, and feed on control, we're often taught to fight back, to expose them, to call out their behavior in bold, dramatic ways. But what if I told you that none of that is necessary? What if simply seeing clearly is enough? You see, a narcissist doesn't feed on truth. They feed on confusion, reaction, and attention. Like a fire needs oxygen, they need your energy, whether it's admiration or outrage. As long as you're engaged, they remain powerful. But when you no longer play their game, something remarkable happens. Their power over you dissolves. Not because they changed, but because you did. There's an old Zen teaching that says, "A shadow cannot exist when light shines fully upon it." This is the essence of awareness. It's not loud, it doesn't fight, it simply reveals. It turns on the light. When you recognize someone's behavior for what it is, not what you wish it to be, not what they pretend it is, but what it truly is, you begin to reclaim your peace. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to humiliate them. You don't even need to get closure. Because truth, once seen, is a kind of closure all on its own. Let's say you're speaking with someone who constantly manipulates conversations, twists your words, or acts like the victim whenever they're questioned. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or even a partner. Before, their behavior left you confused. You second-guessed yourself. You tried harder to explain, to fix, to be fair. But now, you see it clearly. And in that moment, you no longer feel the need to explain. You simply let silence do the speaking. This isn't silence out of fear. It's silence out of strength. It's the kind of silence that says, "I see you. I don't need to react. I know the truth, and that is enough." From the outside, it might not look like a big moment, but internally, it's everything. Because for the first time, you're not handing over your energy. You're keeping it. You're no longer caught in the endless loop of trying to convince someone of what they already know, but refuse to admit. You're no longer bargaining with illusion. You're simply standing in your own clarity. And that is freedom. It reminds me of another Zen proverb. When the wind stops chasing the tree, the leaves settle on their own. You don't have to chase justice from those who never offered sincerity. You don't have to force truth into a place where lies are comfortable. Instead, you step back, you detach, not with bitterness, but with grace. Because here's what's most important. You don't need to defeat the narcissist. You don't need them to admit they were wrong, or to see the damage they caused, or to apologize with perfect timing and sincerity. Those are all just shadows, empty hopes projected onto a person who may never be able to meet them. What you do need is to see clearly, to stop handing your energy to someone who only consumes it, to stop asking the sun to rise in the wrong sky. That is where your power lives, not in confrontation, but in choice. The choice to walk away from illusion, the choice to guard your peace, the choice to return to yourself. So, if you've been wondering what to say to someone who thrives on manipulation, the answer might be nothing. Because silence is not weakness when it comes from awareness. It's a boundary. It's a shield. It's a light that says, "I see you, I understand, and I'm no longer giving you what you came for." And that, my friend, is how the game ends. Not with a scream, but with stillness. Not with revenge, but with release. Not with conflict, but with clarity. Part 6. Awakening is freedom, not control. Let's begin with a simple truth. You cannot turn a snake into a dove. No matter how kind your intentions, how patient your explanations, or how much love you give, a snake will still bite, not because it hates you, but because that's its nature. And so the wisdom is not in changing the snake. The wisdom is in seeing it clearly and stepping away. In our lives, we often pour our energy into trying to fix people, especially those who hurt us. We think, maybe if I explain better, they'll understand. Maybe if I give more, they'll soften. Maybe if I forgive again, they'll finally change. But here's the painful truth. You cannot awaken someone who is determined to sleep. You cannot force sincerity out of someone who uses kindness as currency. It's like knocking on a door that opens into an empty room. And the longer you stay, hoping that room will fill with love, the more you begin to disappear inside it. So what do? We stop knocking. We turn inward, not with resentment, but with release. Because true awakening, real spiritual maturity, is realizing that freedom doesn't come from changing others. It comes from releasing the illusion that you need to. There is a Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And that suffering often arises not from what others do to us, but from what we expect of them. You suffer not because they lied, but because you expected truth. You suffer not because they failed to show up, but because you believed they would. You suffer not because of who they are, but because of who you thought they could become. And when you finally see them as they are, clearly, without filters or illusions, something shifts. You stop needing to explain yourself to someone who has no interest in understanding. You stop needing to prove your worth to someone who only sees themselves. You stop giving emotional CPR to a relationship that was never breathing in the first place. And you begin to reclaim something sacred, your peace. Now, this doesn't mean you become cold. It doesn't mean you harden your heart or close yourself off from connection. It simply means you stop confusing self-sacrifice with compassion. It means you understand that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's wise. You realize that you were never here to change others. You were here to awaken yourself. And part of that awakening is learning to let go. Let go of the idea that closure requires an apology. Let go of the hope that one day they'll see what they did. Let go of the fantasy that your love will heal what they refuse to even admit is broken. Because healing isn't about getting someone else to admit they were wrong. It's about releasing the belief that their validation is necessary for your wholeness. So, if there is someone in your life who continues to hurt you, who manipulates, dismisses, or belittles your truth, who drains your energy without giving anything back, ask yourself this: am I trying to make them change, or am I ready to let myself be free? You may never hear the words "I'm sorry" from their mouth, but you can still whisper "I'm done" in your heart. And that moment, quiet, inward, free of drama, is your beginning. The moment you stop trying to wake the snake and simply walk away. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with revenge, but with self-respect. Not because they aren't worthy of love, but because you are. Part 7. Why narcissists fear this question. There is a question so simple, so quiet, that it slips through defenses like a breeze through an open window. And yet for the narcissist, it lands like thunder. What do you gain from this? At first glance, it may seem harmless, a mere curiosity. But for someone who builds their life on illusion, this question is a mirror they can't bear to look into. Because you see, narcissists survive by controlling perception. Their entire identity is a performance, a polished mask designed not to reflect who they are, but who they want you to believe they are. They appear kind, generous, accomplished, But beneath the surface lies something fragile and terrified, a self that fears being ordinary, unseen, or, worst of all, unimportant. So when you ask them, sincerely and calmly, what do you gain from this? You're not just asking about an action, you're piercing through the illusion. You're inviting truth into a space built on fiction. And that terrifies them. Why? Because any answer they give will crack the mask. If they tell the truth, I want recognition, praise, control, they expose themselves. If they lie, I gain nothing, I do it out of pure love, they sound hollow, defensive. And if they avoid answering altogether, their silence says more than words ever could. No matter which path they take, they lose control. And that is their greatest fear. Control is their currency. Admiration is their oxygen. Validation is their mirror. But this question breaks all three. It doesn't fight them. It doesn't shame them. It simply reveals them. And when their hidden motives are exposed, the game changes. Suddenly, the audience is no longer applauding. People begin to notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the manipulation. Even worse, you begin to see clearly. And once you do, they lose their grip on you. Now, this clarity won't always be met with grace. A narcissist rarely accepts exposure quietly. Instead, they react. They may get angry, accuse you of being disrespectful, ungrateful, or even cruel. They may twist your words, turning your clarity into an imagined attack. They may try to turn others against you, using charm and half-truths to protect their image. But here's the gift of awareness. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Their manipulation loses its magic. Their anger doesn't rattle you the way it used to. You no longer feel the need to explain, defend, or convince. You simply observe, like watching a storm pass from the safety of shelter. This doesn't mean you're better than them. It means you're no longer bound to them. And that's where your freedom begins. It's not about defeating the narcissist. It's not about proving them wrong or forcing them to change. It's about reclaiming your energy. It's about seeing things as they are, without illusion or hope that they will be different. Buddhist wisdom teaches us, when you see clearly, you stop clinging. And once you stop clinging, you stop suffering. So if someone in your life reacts with hostility when gently asked, "What do you gain from this?" Pause. Look past the words. Feel the energy behind the reaction. Are they defending truth, or are they defending a story they can't live without? And, more importantly, is that a story you still want to be part of? Because you always have a choice, to stay in the illusion or to walk toward your own clarity. The question is simple, but the freedom it brings, that is the true miracle.
Part 8. Emotional Detachment. The difficult but necessary step. Let's take a deep, quiet breath together. Now, ask yourself, why is it so hard to walk away from someone who keeps hurting us? It's not always because of fear. Often, it's because of love. Because deep down, we believe that if we just love harder, if we're more patient, more understanding, they will finally see us, value us, and treat us with the kindness we've been waiting for. But what if that day never comes? One of the most painful truths in life is this: the people who cause us the deepest suffering are often the ones we care about most. This is especially true for kind, compassionate souls, those who carry warm hearts and open hands. People like this struggle the most when faced with a harsh reality, that someone they love may never truly love them back in the same way. Not because they are unworthy of love, but because the other person simply does not have the capacity to offer it. That truth is bitter.
But as the Buddha taught, suffering arises not from what is, but from our resistance to what is. The pain is not just in the reality, it's in our refusal to accept that reality. It's like standing at the edge of a dry well, thirsty and hopeful, waiting for water that will never come. The longer we stay, the deeper our thirst becomes. And yet, it is only when we accept this well is dry that we can finally walk away and begin seeking true nourishment elsewhere. This is the essence of emotional detachment. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you stop expecting someone to give what they've never shown they're capable of giving. You stop hoping they'll suddenly change. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop tying your peace to their presence. And instead, you start returning to yourself. Emotional detachment is not a rejection of others. It is a return to truth. It is realizing that no amount of effort can fill the void in someone else's heart if they refuse to look at it themselves. It's the decision to stop losing yourself while trying to save someone who doesn't even believe they're drowning. In Buddhist teachings, attachment is one of the primary causes of suffering. Not just attachment to people, but to ideas. Ideas like, they will change, I can fix this, or if I love them enough, they'll love me too. But liberation comes the moment you see clearly. You cannot drink water from a dry well. You cannot harvest fruit from a tree that has never grown roots. And you cannot find peace in someone who thrives on your confusion. So what can you do? You shift your perspective. You stop asking, why don't they love me the way I love them? And you start asking, why am I giving so much love to someone who cannot receive it? That shift changes everything. It gives you permission to leave, not in anger, not in resentment, but in clarity. It allows you to protect your peace without guilt. It invites you to heal not by fixing them, but by releasing them. Imagine your heart as a sacred temple. Would you let someone walk in with muddy shoes and trample the floors you've polished with patience, trust, and care? Or would you close the doors gently, not in hatred, but in self-respect? Emotional detachment is not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-love. It's choosing to value your own well-being above someone else's dysfunction. It's a brave, silent revolution, a quiet turning away from pain toward the light of your own presence. So, if you find yourself holding on to someone who only brings chaos to your soul, remember the teaching. Freedom begins the moment we stop begging from those who cannot give. Not because they are bad, not because you are weak, but because you finally realized you deserve more. You deserve peace.
Part 9. Silent Victory. Winning without fighting. Let's take a slow, mindful breath together. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone wronged you and you burned with the urge to confront, to expose, to fight back? It's a natural response. We want justice. We want truth to be known. We want others to see what we see. But in the journey of inner peace, not all battles are meant to be fought. Some are meant to be walked away from with quiet strength. There is a kind of victory that doesn't come with applause, a victory that leaves no scars, no broken pieces, no regret. It is the silent victory, and often it is the most powerful one of all. When dealing with someone who thrives on control, manipulation, or attention, like a narcissist, our first instinct may be to confront, to call them out, to make others see what we see. But here's the truth. Narcissists are masters at spinning narratives. The more you argue, the more ground you give them to twist the story. And in trying to prove they're wrong, you end up pulled deeper into their web. What if, instead of trying to fight,
you simply stepped away. Not in fear, not in weakness, but with awareness. There's a Buddhist saying that goes, "When the wind stops chasing the tree, the leaves fall on their own." Let that settle for a moment. You don't have to shake the tree for the truth to be revealed. You don't have to shout for others to see. You just need to stop giving your energy to something that no longer serves your peace. This isn't about avoiding hard conversations or being passive. It's about understanding where your power truly lies. And sometimes your power is in the boundaries you quietly draw. You withdraw your trust, not in bitterness, but in clarity. You limit your exposure, not to punish, but to protect. You stop chasing closure from someone who was never open in the first place. This isn't emotional detachment. It's emotional maturity. It's the ability to walk away without the need to prove yourself right, to value your peace more than the need to win an argument. And yes, it might feel cold at first, especially if you're someone who has always cared deeply, who believes in second chances, who tries to see the good in people. But peace doesn't come from changing someone else. It comes from changing how much of yourself you continue to give to someone who has shown you they don't value it. There is great dignity in quiet distance. There is strength in no longer explaining. And there is deep wisdom in choosing not to fight a battle that cannot be won without losing yourself. Think of the wind again. When it stops chasing the tree, the leaves fall on their own. Not because you forced anything, but because nature reveals truth in time. So let go, not in anger, but in softness. Step back, not to punish, but to reclaim your center. This is how you win without fighting. This is the silent victory, and it belongs to those who choose inner stillness over external chaos. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to protect your energy for what truly matters, and how walking away can actually be the beginning of deeper freedom. But for now, just sit with this truth. You don't always have to speak louder. Sometimes it's the silence that says everything. Part 10. Know where to invest your energy. Take a moment with me, just one slow, conscious breath. Life is not only about who we love, but also where we pour our energy, and that changes everything. You see, energy is sacred. It's the silent currency of our presence, our attention, our care, our time. Yet so many of us give it away too freely. Not because we're weak, but because we care, because we believe in people. Because we hope that if we just love a little harder, try a little more, explain one more time, maybe they'll finally understand. But what if the problem was never about trying harder? What if it was about choosing better? There's a quiet wisdom in stopping to ask yourself these simple yet revealing questions. Does this person bring peace into my life, or more chaos? When you're around them, do you feel calm, safe, seen? Or are you constantly on edge, doubting yourself, drained from trying to make things right? Do they truly care about how I feel, or only how I make them feel? Do they ask how you're doing without expecting something in return? Do they hold space for your truth? Or is it always about them? Is this relationship nurturing me, or slowly depleting me? Relationships are like soil. The right ones make you bloom. The wrong ones slowly dry out your roots until you forget what joy even feels like. These questions may seem simple, but don't underestimate their power. They act like a mirror, not for others, but for yourself. They reveal what you've perhaps avoided seeing, because the truth, though freeing, often hurts before it heals. Maybe you've given too much for too long. Maybe you've confused effort with love, or tolerance with kindness. But here's the thing, love doesn't require you to suffer endlessly. Compassion doesn't mean self-abandonment. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a deep teaching. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Let that sink in. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and the other person is to walk away. Not with anger, not with blame, but with clarity. Clarity that your energy is meant to build, not to beg. To nourish your inner garden, not to water barren ground. To heal, not to be exhausted trying to fix what refuses to be mended. You owe no one your energy if it costs you your peace. So today, ask yourself those 3 questions, not from judgment, but from compassion. Does this bring me peace or pain? Is my presence valued or only used? Am I growing or slowly fading? And whatever the answers may be, trust them, because they don't come from ego. They come from your inner knowing, the quiet voice beneath the noise. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to protect your energy. And you are allowed to redirect your love to where it's truly seen, respected, and returned. The river doesn't explain why it changes course. The sun doesn't apologize for setting. And you too don't need permission to honor your path. In the next part, we'll explore what it truly means to walk away, not with guilt, but with grace. But for now, just know this. Your energy is precious. Spend it where your soul feels alive.
The path to inner freedom. Let's pause, just for a moment. Take a slow, gentle breath in. And as you exhale, let go of the need to fix, to fight, or to convince. You're here. That's enough. There's something deeply liberating in realizing this. You don't need to destroy the narcissist. You only need to stop feeding the illusion. So often, we exhaust ourselves trying to win with someone who was never playing fair. We offer understanding, reasoning, even love, hoping it will melt the mask. But the truth is, no matter how sincere your efforts, you cannot awaken someone who refuses to see. You cannot fill a well that is cracked at the bottom. And so, real healing begins not with changing them, but by seeing them clearly. The question, what do you gain from this, is more than just a mirror for the narcissist. It's a doorway for your awakening. Because when you ask it, you step out of emotional reactivity and into inner clarity. You stop getting lost in their story and begin returning to your own. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, why am I still offering my light to someone who lives in shadow? This shift is subtle but life-changing. It's like finally turning off the noise and hearing your own breath again. Think about it. How often have you tolerated manipulation in the name of love? How many times have you betrayed your own boundaries trying to keep the peace? And how long have you mistaken self-sacrifice for strength? But now you begin to remember. Real strength is not found in enduring more pain. It's found in choosing peace even when your mind still craves closure. It's found in walking away, not with bitterness, but with deep, grounded clarity. As the Buddha taught, to understand everything is to forgive everything. And in this case, that forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Forgiving yourself for not knowing sooner. Forgiving your younger self for believing the illusion. And most importantly, freeing yourself from the idea that you ever had to fix someone to prove your worth. Let's reframe this. You're not giving up, you're waking up. You're not being cold, you're being clear. You're not walking away from love, you're walking toward real love, starting with yourself. A Zen teaching says, "The wise man does not argue with the deceiver, nor seek truth from one who hides from it." So instead of trying to expose them, withdraw your energy. Instead of forcing closure, create your own peace.
Instead of hoping for change, honor your own growth. Ask yourself, does this relationship nourish my spirit or drain it? Do I feel seen and respected or managed and controlled? Is there space here for me to be fully myself? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. This isn't about revenge, it's about release. It's not about silence to punish, it's silence as protection. It's not about closing your heart, it's about choosing where to open it. When you no longer give your light to someone who only uses it to cast longer shadows, you reclaim your power, quietly, completely. So if you've been waiting for a sign to walk away from the illusion, this is it. This is your moment of return, not to them, but to yourself. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose wisdom over illusion. Choose peace over suffering. And above all, choose yourself. If this message resonates with your heart, take a moment to reflect. And if you feel called, I invite you to subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own awakening. In the comments, share what this journey opened for you, or simply write, I choose myself. Until next time, may you walk gently through this life, with eyes wide open and a heart that remembers. You were never lost, you were only learning how to come home.